Hello, and welcome back for this scientific ethics lecture on religion and ethics. So when we take a look at the concepts associated with religion as it impacts on kind of a view of ethics, we can start out with Plato's dialogue to Euthyphro, where basically he raises the question, is morality next to godliness? And Plato, put it a lot better than I could. But basically he said, do the gods love holiness because it is holy, or is it holy because the gods love it? So basically looking at it as this interrelationship between religion, between an interaction or the pursuit of worship and living a religious life and morality and ethics. Okay, so if we take a look at this in a little bit more detail, trying to come up with a series of questions that we can ask, but basically say, what is that connection between religion and morality? If you talk to a lot of people that are religious, they're going to say that their morality depends upon their religious view, and to the most part, people pursue this moral code kind of in alignment with the religion, but oftentimes there comes into a situation where kind of the religious tenets are going to dictate one type of behavior, and individuals are going to want to pursue a different type of behavior. So it's not an all or none type phenomenon. There are some odds, even with the most religious of individual when it comes to certain aspects of morality. So when we take a look at it, looking at that connection between religion and morality, we can start out with at a very basic sense. Does morality depend on religion? Do you have to have a religion? Do you have to have a relationship with a deity or God in order to be a moral individual? The next question is religion irrelevant or even contrary to morality? Is there kind of a separation between kind of religious tenets, the way the religion kind of tells the practitioners, the people that are worshiping the religion, to act in a certain way, or is it completely contrary to the morality that may be kind of expressed by that individual as they go out and interact with other people? And then finally, are religion and morality complementary to one another? Does the presence and the practice of a religion enhance the moral life? Does it make it easier to be moral? Does it give greater meaning to the morality that an individual may be pursuing? Okay, so to start out with, to take a look at that question, does morality depend on religion? What we can focus in on is this view of divine command theory. With divine command theory, it's the idea that the god or gods that an individual is worshiping are going to give these commands, are going to give these rules that must be followed, and they must be followed because they're coming from the god, and therefore they have a higher precedence over, or higher priority over any other kind of ideas or moral codes that an individual would have. So when we're thinking about divine command theory and the presence of God providing kind of the religious rules and the moral rules that kind of go along with that, kind of in the absence of a God, so those individuals that are not worshiping a God, basically divine command theory says there's no universally valid morality, so that you need to have the God's presence and the God's kind of involvement in order to have a morality being present. And so this gives rise to kind of very religious individuals kind of coming up with a moral rightness, or the kind of correctness of the moral actions that they're doing, because they would argue that they have to be moral because they're following God's will. And to take that to kind of the contrary view, this idea then that if an individual is acting immorally, they're basically kind of actively disobeying their God, or acting against the wishes of their God. So again, as we started out, for many people out in society, if you ask them, what is the basis of their morality, they're going to identify morality as a relationship between an individual and their God. Now, still, that's a very common view, even, in this day and age, a vast majority of people worldwide are religious at varying degrees. But there are still some kind of non-religious, or at least non-secular, non-religious approaches to kind of moral systems. And so examples of that, and we'll come back to these in a little bit later today, is Confucianism in China, is a system that is present in the absence of God. There are non-theist versions of Buddhism, and so different views of Buddha, some of which are basically looking at Buddha as not a godly figure, but a moral leader, historical leader. And then finally, many Greek philosophers contemplated a morality which was independent of religion. So that gives rise, kind of moving away from that divine command theory into the independence theory. The independence theory is that ethics exists independent of the God. That you can have a religion, you can have a God present that kind of gives you guidance as to how you're going to be living your life, but ethics exists separate from the God. It's kind of a universal, I don't want to say law, but maybe a law, kind of a universal rule or universal laws that are present that everyone has to obey, even the gods. And so for many people, this is an interesting perspective, because it basically says that, the God, it may be all powerful, the deity may be all powerful, but there's still things that the God has to, go along with. They have to, follow these moral laws, even in their actions. So if we take a look at this, again, moving back into the divine command theory, there's some problems with that. And again, all of these different ethical views that we take a look at, there are, challenges associated with it. You can make philosophical arguments for and against the pursuit of many of these moral codes. And again, emphasizing that there's not one kind of pure kind of ethical viewpoint that applies to all people in all situations and in all times. They're going to be individuals that, are going to approach things and think about things in different ways. So, the problems associated with divine command theory is kind of related to that initial question that we posed from Plato. Is it good because God commands it, or basically, is it good? I'll go back to the original one. So basically, do the gods love holiness because it's holy, or is it holy because the gods love it? And you can make the same argument for morality. Is an action moral because it's in alignment with what the gods are saying, or is it something that can be dictated by the god? So basically, it becomes a circular argument. God commands you to be good, and therefore, if you're good, God is going to be pleased, and we're going to have that circular argument. Another problem with divine command theory is that morality then can be somewhat arbitrary. The God can change what is good. At least within Christianity, you can see that a little bit, because the God of the Old Testament has different viewpoints and different ways of kind of expressing it and expecting different expectations for the individuals that are worshiping to pursue. And that changed in the New Command. You got the Old Commandment or the Old Testament and the New Testament. And therefore, you see individuals of the Jewish religion that are working primarily with modifications of variations of the Old Testament that are worshiping their God very differently than Christians that are looking primarily at the New Testament. And so the God can change what is good, and basically anything that the God commands can then become a moral duty. And so, again, taking a look at this as kind of an external influence, which is kind of guiding the religious viewpoint. So what we're looking at then, again, with divine command theory and the God providing, what is ethical, what is moral, morality then is based on the God and is based on the divine will. So an individual practicing that religion is not necessarily going to kind of be thinking independently for themselves. And so basically what they're going to be doing is following the tenets of the religion, but not necessarily kind of understanding the underlying issues that are giving rise to the reasons for the actions that they're pursuing. And therefore, they don't really have to think about what is going on. They just have to think about, based on my religion, how is it that I'm going to be acting? Now, if we bring Kant into this, Kant stands that God makes morality possible. And so that we're going to have this kind of interplay then between God and morality. And basically, Kant says that God and humanity must follow rational principles, and therefore they're going to be valid religious, religious ethics based on kind of the religious views, and they're also going to be valid philosophical ethics that can be kind of present and can be thought about logically or be thought about through experience, but can be kind of derived in the absence of a religion. And so basically what God does, God or gods do, is they, again, take a complementary view that religion completes morality. And so you can have both of these kind of coming together. And so basically what we end up with is this God as an arbitrator who is going to be enforcing the moral laws. And so, in some religions, there's, if you live a righteous life, if you live an ethical and moral life, there's going to be a reward for you at a later time, generally after death. And so basically what we end up with is that the immortality of the soul that, kind of continues onward in these religious views, is necessary to attain moral perfection. And so you basically have to, kind of go through life, and then ultimately, if you have a pure life, pursuing, the appropriate moral kind of codes, the religious tenets, you're going to be getting closer and closer to moral perfection, which you'll reach in the afterlife. So if we take a look at this, again, and try to think about this in relationship to kind of alternative viewpoints and, alternative religions, you can make the argument, at least some people make the argument, that religion is irrelevant, or in some cases even contrary to morality. And so, would you make the argument that in order to be kind of a moral person, an ethical person, you must be religious? Or can, non-religious people, people that are not interested in pursuing a God, or for whatever reason, don't feel that gods exist, can they be moral? And I think you would see that, there are, good people living good lives and good interactions with one another in a way that we would recognize as being moral and ethical in the absence of a religion being present. And so, you can make this argument, again, thinking about the altruism that we talked about a couple lectures ago, that in its purest form, religious ethics are going to be a form of strong altruism, that you act well towards others, that you're generous towards others, you put the needs of others before yourself as a tenet of, a religion. So you can think about somebody like Mother Teresa in Calcutta, India. She would, go out, live among the poor, and really serve the community that she was in. In contrast, a a more secular ethics, and ethics kind of focused more on kind of a non-religious viewpoints, people make the argument that you're looking more at reciprocal altruism, that in most cases, you're going to be altruistic or generous and respectful to others in the hope that, somebody is going to be, generous and respectful to you. Now, again, we're looking at extremes when we take a look at this. And it's possible that somebody could make an argument that religious ethics, at least in some religions, isn't necessarily a strong, pure altruism, because you end up in a situation where, if you live that just life, if you live the moral life, you're going to get a reward in the afterlife. You're going to make it into heaven, or you're going to get, some benefits or something else going on, in that way. And therefore, the actions are truly altruistic because you're doing it for something in return. Now, as we said, half a dozen slides ago or so, there are many moral systems that are present outside of religion. And so examples of this, as we described, are Confucianism, Buddhism, as well as some of the arguments that early Greek philosophers made. And again, I would kind of argue, or at least kind of introduce the idea and let you think about it, that individuals, regardless of the reason they're going to be moral, regardless of the reasons they're going to be acting in an ethical way towards one another, it can be independent from a religion. If you've got an individual that has kind of a strong moral compass, kind of directing kind of their behavior, they don't necessarily have to have, God as an external rule maker, or God as an arbitrator, or God as an enforcer, in order to kind of go out and do good things kind of among their community and act in an ethical way towards others. And so to kind of expand on this, and again, see some of the conflict that occurs between secular ethicists and religious ethicists, is this idea that secular ethicists often have problems with religious ethics because they feel that if you were approaching kind of your morality simply for the basis of pursuing a religion or acting in a religious way, you're not really thinking about yourself. You're thinking for yourself. You're following the rules that are given to you, and you're giving up your free will. You're giving up your autonomy in order to be able to follow and pursue these divine instructions. Related to this is that the argument over here at the top that religious ethics are inferior because they limit deep moral development. And this is the idea that, in order to reach kind of a perfect cognitive state or kind of a perfect understanding of ethics, you need to be able to really kind of think about it, think about the reasons behind it, think about, why it's necessary to act in that way. If you take a religious ethics view kind of to its extreme, it's you should be good because God tells you to. You should act well to your others, towards others, because God tells you to do that. There's no opportunity for debate. There's no opportunity for kind of understanding the underlying principles because the rules are provided to them within their religious studies. So the question, kind of going back to this religious view, is this idea: does religion enhance a moral life? Is there kind of a complementary relationship between religion and morality? So with a God, for religious people, the God is present to kind of hopefully support, inspire, and give strength to the individual. And so when they're in a conflict, a challenge as to, should they be doing the right thing? Should they, speak up when they see injustice? Should they, intervene when somebody needs assistance? The presence of a God in their lives means that they're not alone in that fight for good. They're not alone in trying to go out and have a positive influence on the world around them. Potentially, and this is a little bit of a exaggeration, but this idea that, the God, may, in his rule as an arbitrator or kind of a law enforcer, if you want to think about it that way, that there's, some cosmic justice or cosmic balance within the universe. So, if you do good things to people over and over again, good things are going to balance out and come your way. The view that, if people are doing bad things to other people, they're going to have bad things. They're going to happen to them later on. And this is generally viewed as karma. It's not exactly what karma says, but it's a good, at least colloquial version of what karma is doing. And again, that relationship of cosmic justice and the God being present helps kind of enforce or at least encourage individuals to pursue kind of their religious and moral life. And then finally, many of the religions indicate that humanity is created in God's image. And so for that, if they're made in God's image and God is divine, then, ultimately, everyone should be seen as being important. Everybody should be seen as being needing respect as we go forward. And so ideally, all persons have an equal worth, and all persons should be treated appropriately and respectfully. And that, sadly, even today, is an area that still needs to be worked on in society. To take the opposing viewpoint, we can make the argument that religion kind of is complementary or enhances moral life. We can also look at religion can potentially detract from morality. And again, taking a look at this from kind of a historical perspective, there are many instances where evil has been done in the name of humanity. Evil, even evil is often done in the name of humanity, but evil can be done in the name of religion. As we said, religious morality are rules that are provided to the individuals, provided to the society from their deity, and they're supposed to be followed without question. And so there's limited possibility for debate or compromise. And so because of that, if you've got individuals that have different interpretations of the same religious viewpoints, you can take a look at, Northern Ireland throughout pretty much the 20th century, and probably even before that. There's open conflict between the Protestants and the Catholics. Both, Christians, both espousing to a Christian religion, but having very, very different viewpoints on what should be done and how actions should be occurring. And because of the entrenched viewpoints, there was no real opportunity for an extended period of time of kind of coming together and agreeing to, kind of one kind of overarching kind of viewpoint being present. And that, again, kind of extends especially towards people outside of the religion. The religious morality often leads to group intolerance to those that are not followers. And so, we've seen, many, many wars throughout history where, you've got one society attacking another society, often kind of grounded in the idea that they're following an untrue God, or they're interfering with the free religion of the group that's doing the attacking. And so we see things like the Crusades or many other kind of battles and wars throughout history because of this conflict between religious viewpoints. And so again, religion can complement a moral life, but taken to its extreme, to a point of intolerance, religion can detract from morality. Now, the reading for this, again, is the textbook, chapter 12, Religion and Ethics. So take a look at that. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you and have a great day.